Hi, good evening, everyone. We're gonna wait a few minutes as people trickle in the waiting room. Let's see. So I think we can get started. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight for tonight's program, Life Today, a conversation with Jill Golden and Kostya Kennedy. My name is Olivia Luntz, and it is my pleasure on behalf of the Greenwich Historical Society to welcome you all to tonight's webinar, and we're thrilled to have you with us. We are pleased to present tonight's program as part of our ongoing programs accompanying our current exhibition, Life, 6 Women Photographers. Tonight's program will take a look behind the scenes of Life with Jill Golden, director of Life's picture collection, in conversation with writer and journalist Kostya Kennedy, who is also Life's current editor-in-chief. This event will consist of a conversation followed by the opportunity for a moderated Q&A. So please feel free to drop your questions as they come up throughout the presentation in the Q&A feature that you can find at the bottom of your screen. And we'll be paying attention to those, and we'll have a chance for Jill and Kostya to answer them. This program will also be recorded and available for further viewing on our website following the conclusion of the program. So it is now my pleasure to introduce our guests for the evening, Jill Golden and Kostya Kennedy, and tell you a bit about them. So we're going to start things off with Jill. So Jill is the director of Life's Picture Collection and vice president of the Picture Collection Incorporated, a subsidiary of the Meredith Corporation, where she manages the description and monetization of over 10 million historical photographs. She's previously held archival and digital roles at Stanford University and for the US government, where her innovative work led to awards from the Library of Congress and the American Library Association. She holds master's degrees from Stanford and Syracuse universities and a bachelor's from Carleton College. So I'm going to pass things on over to Jill to let her tell you a bit about her role at the Picture Collection.
Hi, everyone. So I'm Jill Golden. I'm really glad that you're here, and I'm really glad to be with Kostya, who's one of my favorite colleagues ever, and working with Olivia. So I hope this can be interactive as much as Zoom can be. So I'm going to kind of walk you through what the Life Photo Archive is today, how you can access it, what kind of activities we're doing, and then toss it over to Kostya, who oversees a vast printing arm for Life. So feel free to post questions in the chat, and Olivia, feel free to interrupt me if anything comes up. And Kostya, do you want to say a few words first, or?
Oh, I can. Why don't I join in afterward? But I'm very happy
Okay.
to be here with you and looking forward to it. I
Yeah.
also love working with Jill and pleased to be here as we, continue to move Life forward into centuries ahead.
Yeah. And Kostya too, feel free to chime in, because I know you'll recognize a lot of the photographs I'm going to share today.
Okay.
So let me enter the slideshow. Olivia, Kostya, everything good? Can you see? So all of the photographs today come from the Life Picture Collection. So it's the vast photographic archive of Life magazine. We have cataloged over 10 million items. So these are some fun photographs of our collection. This is Margaret Berkwhite, Life's first female photographer. Her work is currently on display at the Greenwich Historical Society. And here she is on the Chrysler Building taking some photographs. A classic photo of the Beatles in a swimming pool. So that day, it was actually in Florida. This was taken in Florida in the 1960s, of course. And it was, I think, during winter time. So the water was really cold. So it sort of looks like they're singing, but they're actually just shivering. So a classic Life photo. Of course, Life covered JFK and Jackie's wedding. We also have an incredible history of innovations in photography. So our photographers were photojournalists, but they were also incredible artists. So welcome. So I'll just walk you quickly through the history of the magazine. And again, I urge you to go see the exhibit at the Greenwich Historical Society for even more context. So Life was founded in 1936 by Henry Luce. However, he often attributed the idea for the magazine to his wife, Claire Booth Luce, who had the idea for Life, according to some scholars, as early as the 1934. So Luce was an interesting figure. He was born in China to parents who were missionaries, and so he moved to the U.S. to attend Yale University. And he had a really interesting eye, kind of almost an insider-outsider's eye for the news and for visual culture in the United States. He founded Time Magazine in 1923, Fortune Magazine in 1930, and then Life in 36. And it was his goal, with all of the innovations in printing technology, to make America's first mass photography magazine. There were mass photography magazines at the time in Germany and in the UK, and Luce wanted to kind of be the first. So he teamed up with later poet laureate and Librarian of Congress Archibald MacLeish, and they wrote this incredible prospectus that still guides the ethos of Life today. And if you're interested, you can find it online, but here's just a snippet. And if you've seen The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, the Ben Stiller movie, they also quote it as well. So to see life, to see the world, to see strange things, it's very poetic. And the whole point of the magazine was to capture all of the wonder and the full range of life, and to kind of evoke joy and interest in the audience. So while we were preparing for this and other exhibits, we found some early mock-ups of Life magazine. So there was a magazine called Life that was started, I believe, in the 1880s, that Claire Booth Luce and Henry Luce wanted the name, but it wasn't until 1936 that they could buy the name Life. So all of their mock issues were called Dummy or Dime, because they didn't have the name Life yet until almost at the very end. And so this is from 34, and I love, I don't know if you see on the right, but it says love in the year 2000. So they're imagining people marrying robots, which is a great story. So, and of course, these are the first 2 issues of the magazine. Margaret Burke White, the woman I showed you on the cover, on the top of, on part of the Chrysler building, shot the first cover, and Alfred Eisenstadt, an emigre from Germany, shot the second cover. So Life coined the term photo essay. Famously, in the early years, they photographed first and wrote the text second, so it was visual first. And again, Luce's idea was to bring an editorial mix, a wide array of topics, from hard news to cooking to living and design, all into one perfect package, which was the weekly magazine. And again, I kind of touched a little bit on where Life fits in the context of American media. In 1954, it was the best-selling magazine in the United States. 1 out of every 3 Americans, according to some circulation research, was looking at Life magazine within a given month. And Luce went on to create Sports Illustrated and a number of other iconic magazines. Of course, People magazine. Yeah, and so these are just some interesting numbers that we have. So Life existed as a weekly from 1936 to 1972. Some people debate why. There's a lot of reasons why it ended, which we can talk about if folks are interested. And then it was relaunched again as a monthly magazine from 1978 to 2000. But most of these numbers just relate to the iconic weekly. So over 10 million frames were shot for the magazine. We estimate that only 3% of those were ever published in the magazine. I'm happy to report that we've been scanning them over the years. So we have scans of those, which I'll talk about how you can look at them. Unfortunately, 5 photographers died while on assignment for Life, covering wars around the world. We have over 10 million followers on our social channels, so you can find us there. And we had, one of the things I'm particularly interested in is Life's coverage during World War II. They had 21 staff photographers in combat zones during the war. So you can look through day by day by day to see them getting closer, to Berlin, or closer in the Pacific Theater, to ending the conflict. It's really fascinating. And just some examples of our most iconic photographers. So of course, Margaret Burke White, who's in the exhibit at the Historical Society. I kind of think she was like the James Bond of her day. She loved a cocktail. She looked beautiful in a gown. She was fearless. She photographed Gandhi and Stalin. She was brave. She was an aerial photographer. Like, what couldn't she do? So if you're interested, she wrote a wonderful memoir. So I highly recommend. And then, of course, you'll recognize the classic photo on your right. And of course, this was taken in Victory in Europe Day in Times Square. But one of my favorite photos from the collection, and this photograph was taken by Alfred Eisenstadt, is on the left, you'll see the photographer himself who took this picture on the same day kissing his girlfriend. So that's Alfred Eisenstadt with the same camera that he used to take the VJ Day photo. Victory in Japan Day. So of course, Gordon Parks was our first Black staff photographer, incredible artist, musician. He was a film director. If you love the movie Shaft, he wrote a number of wonderful books. So in addition to his incredible civil rights photography, which you might be familiar with, he was also a great film and fashion photographer. And then we had incredible combat photographers. One example is Carl Meidens, who actually was captured in the Philippines by the Japanese and put in an internment camp. Life got him out sometime later, and then he went back to photograph the liberation of his own internment camp, and Life published that. So Meidens is a fascinating character. So onto the archive, and how can you see all of these millions of photographs and research these stories and I would love to hear ideas for books and movies because there's so many stories in the collection. So we have a number of warehouses. We have like an acre of materials. We have the original negatives and prints and slides and photographers' notes. And so in addition, Life over the years, because it was acquiring, it wanted to be a vast photographic library. There wasn't the internet or Getty to look up images. So in the 60s and 70s, they started purchasing collections. So we have even other archives that we've digitized within our collection. So we have 19th century glass plate negatives of New York City. We have part of the Picture Post's archives. So glass plate negatives of European history. The Life's editors actually acquired one of the archives of one of Hitler's personal photographers, which was unique at the time because he was shooting in color. And then we also bought a paparazzo's collection. So if you love 90s celebrities, as I do, we have over 600,000 photos of them. So Life Today primarily exists as a website, life.com, where you can look at these photographs, and we write articles about about stories and images we find in the archives. So we're always interested in writers and contributors. And at the end of the slideshow, I'll have my email address in case you want to reach out. Kostya, my wonderful colleague, oversees our incredible print business, which sells over 2 million copies a year. So you'll see an example of one of his books on the left. And so Life is still part of a massive publishing company, Dotdash Meredith, which is the largest digital and print publisher in the United States. So we publish brands like People and Travel and Leisure and Food and Wine. And so this incredible vast archive is part of a continuing media operation. So as part of that, to be modern, we need to digitize our collection and make it accessible. So these are some of the formats that we've digitized. We also have digitized all of the original photographers' reports. So when they were sent on assignment for Life, they would write a report. We did that, I think, within the past 5 years. So how can you search our collection? If you go to life.com and you click on Life Picture Collection and scroll down, we have links to where to view. We've uploaded 4.4 million photos online, so feel free to search that. We also have a form you can fill out to ask us any questions. You can also reach out to us on social media. So my colleague Taylor, I believe, is with us, and so she manages our social media accounts. And every day we publish a cool photo from the archives. On the left, you'll see our most popular photo of all time, which was of the model Vicky Dugan. Her nickname was the Back. So We also, in recent years, really have a push towards making our collection more accessible to the public. And that's why we've partnered with folks like the Greenwich Historical Society, the New York Historical Society, and the Boston Museum of Fine Arts, among others, to create exhibitions. So again, feel free to contact us if you have exhibition ideas. The exhibition on the left has a beautiful catalog called Life Magazine and the Power of Photography. So we worked on this for a few years with incredible curators and writers, and it's beautiful and features the history of our collection. And of course, you can buy fine art prints. You can find those on our website. One of my favorite on the left of this tiny, tiny dog. We also partner with folks for advertising. So examples, Coca-Cola launched in France, for example, in 1946, and Life was there because they were the predominant sort of visual outlet of the day. So a photographer followed around the launch of Coca-Cola in France, and we work with Coke on exhibits, or have historically, and Mickey Mantle and the Yankees. So one exciting thing that's going to launch in 2025 is the supermodel and media businesswoman Carly Kloss has partnered with us to relaunch Life magazine as a monthly modern contemporary print magazine and digital outlet. So we'll continue to highlight the archive and make it accessible, and they'll be hiring new writers and new photographers to create under the iconic brand and to continue its legacy. One other interesting thing is that we've been experimenting with AI over the last few years with computer vision. So since we've digitized over 10 million objects, how do we catalog them? How do we make them searchable? So this is an example of photographs from our collection that we ran through an algorithm. So these photographs with a 95% confidence interval, so we trained a model to be able to tag these, tag the photographs of pills as sausage. The algorithm was 95% confident that these were digital cameras and that the little bushel of tomatoes were pills. So we're excited to work with AI, but I think there's a lot of opportunity to improve how AI looks at historical photography, and something to think about since most algorithms have been trained on contemporary photos. So that was sort of an interesting thing that happened. So yeah, so that's it for me, and over to my wonderful colleague, Kostya.
Well, thank you so much for sharing all that, Jill. It's so interesting to hear about how life is evolving today and how, our modern technology is influencing these photos that were taken, over 100 years ago. To tell you a bit about Kostya, before he takes it away, Kostya Kennedy is an editorial director at Meredith and the current editor-in-chief of Life. He is a former assistant managing editor and senior writer at Sports Illustrated, and he has been a staff writer at Newsday and has written for publications such as the New York Times, Time, 538.com, the Huffington Post, and the New Yorker. Kennedy earned an MS from Columbia University's Graduate School of Journalism, from which he received a Pulitzer Fellowship. He taught in the graduate journalism program at Columbia and at NYU in the journalism department, and at the Preston Robert Tisch Institute of Global Sport. His television work includes regular appearances as a contributing analyst and commentator on the MLB Network, as well as appearances on Late Night with Seth Meyers, Morning Joe, and numerous other television and radio programs. So, Kostya, over to you.
Thank you so much, Olivia, and thank you, Jill. That was great. I know a sausage when I see one, but I don't know if AI does. So it's great to be here and talk a little bit about life. I'm going to just put up a few slides, but I just want to say one thing that I took away, and that I hope you all took away from Jill's excellent presentation, is just this incredible DNA of life that I'm blessed to have inherited. I took over this job about 8 years ago, and all of us are, we're on the shoulders of some incredible talent and incredible people and incredible product, right? And so there are basically two things in the most macro sense that we have going for us. We have this incredible archive that Jill is talking about and overseeing and leveraging, and then we have the brand itself, right? Life, capital L, capital I, capital F, capital E. It's an iconic logo and brand And that's what we're trying to make use of as we go into the present and the future. So I'm just going to quickly share this. If I can't hear anybody, you guys will tell me this look okay. We're good? Okay, great. So as Olivia mentioned, we work for Life is owned by Dotdash Meredith, which is the largest print and digital publisher in America. And my group is called Premium Publishing. We do have a digital piece of what we do, but we are primarily print. And as in terms of Life, what I'm overseeing are print products under Life. So this is just last year, where obviously we're, whatever, a third of the way or so, more than that, through 24. But this is just, we have a sort of easy look back what we did last year. So we published 56 issues of Life last year, and we sold well over 2 million copies. And what we're publishing and what we're doing is, these are single topic issues. They're, as you can see, they're around as I say, a single topic, a special interest category. And one of the amazing things about Life is that it's kind of elastic. It can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, and it can work with a great number of topics and under a great number of subjects. Whereas other strong brands that we have at Dotdash Meredith, like Better Homes and Gardens, you're probably not going to do a world's most haunted places, although I guess there's probably some pretty haunted homes and gardens. But it's a wonderful brand. Obviously, for a long time, Life was sort of associated with and next to and partnered with Time. And so that association of sort of being a place where you can sort of come to for everything, in a way, with a little bit of what Henry Luce was getting at in that wonderful quote and vision for Life. So we do a lot of different topics. And I'm going to talk a bit about how we come to them. But if anybody has a question along the way, I think the thing to do is put it into the chat, and Olivia can pass it along. We'll definitely have time afterwards to talk. But if I'm talking about something and you want to interrupt, please interrupt. So, in many ways, our topics are chosen by you or anybody who buys and shows an interest in these magazines, and we respond to what the consumer wants. We're consumer driven. We do accept and have some advertising, but our business is basically based on, we make this product, you like it and you want to buy it, and we're doing everything we can to keep you satisfied. And if you're going to buy a book on birds, it's going to have the beautiful pictures. You're going to learn a little bit about the evolution of birds. You're going to learn differences among species within the bird family, et cetera, et cetera. This is the one book you need on Jimmy Buffett. You don't need something else. It's a beautifully told story with marvelous pictures from throughout his life, and so on. One thing about the pictures, we don't, and this has changed a bit since I took over. We still have, and you'll see on some next slides, we still relate to sort of the time of the 50s and 60s, and there are certainly topics to touch on that, but we've evolved more away from that. None of these are topics that are particularly relevant to sort of Life's heyday. We used to do more Kennedy, more Jackie O, more Rat Pack, even just 6-7 years ago, and then people started being a little less interested in it, and so we started doing a little bit less. Space is another category that we obviously, Jill showed that cover of the moon landing. We are doing one this year for the anniversary of the moon landing. It's 55 years. And we had done a lot more space, but there's been a little bit less interest, surprisingly, in that category. One thing I want to point out is, so we have new issues and we also do reprints. So this Haunted Place is printed 11 times. Our Cats is in its 10th printing. And if we're printing it and reprinting it, that means it's successful every time. We're not reprinting things that aren't successful. So meaning it has to be an editorial success. We think it succeeded in what we wanted to do, and sometimes we'll make some changes, certainly factual updates, but also improvements from one issue to another, but also a success with the consumer, that people were interested in it and they wanted to get it. You'll see on the cast we offer this little promise, the truth about kittens. I'm not going to spill it here, but that may be why it's been so successful. People, you're really going to get the lowdown. Pop culture is our biggest category, more than half of the issue. Then we have other key categories. I'm just going to jump into some of them. So here's pop culture, and by pop culture, that is a wide net. We have our Godzilla also, we printed 5 times and it continued to do well, even though we caution you to run for your lives on the cover, as you can see in that little yellow burst, but people have instead come directly for the magazine and wanted it. Here you see a little bit of the mix of what I was telling you, mentioning before. You see Audrey Hepburn, Marilyn Monroe. They're still very important and part of our mix. Elvis, certainly, Frank Sinatra, Lucille Ball, all people that are sort of heralding back to a different time in America, a different time in life. And then you get a little closer, it's to today, right? That picture of Kiss is from their most recent tour. Maybe it's from a couple of years ago. And they had their final tour, and we covered it. And famous band. We've had a lot of success on music, as you can see. The Beatles, we saw that wonderful picture there. There we are using a lot of pictures from the Life archive. Same certainly with Audrey Hepburn and Marilyn. Kiss did not a lot in the archive, right? So we are creating, in both Kiss and Van Halen, we're using pictures from other agencies. We're relying on our excellent photo editors to try to find the best photos and tell the story as best we can. I oversee special issues under a bunch of other brands, including People Magazine. We work with Time, with numerous other, Eating Well, Real Simple, a whole bunch of other travel and leisure brands. One thing about Life is we are still letting the picture tell the story for the most part. Now, there's always a lot of, 18,000 words of text or something in one of these books, and we have excellent writers, and the story, the textual story is very important, but we're aware of being visually driven, and we don't let go of that. That's a big part of what we're trying to do. So let's just move on. A little more pop culture. I wanted to mention, I was going to mention in the beginning when we saw the 2 birds pictures. At certain times we'll do 2 covers. Maybe that's as simple as we think it might appeal to 2 different audiences. Maybe there's a little division in the small group of us who are choosing the covers. Here it seemed like it made sense, right? King Kong himself or herself, I think it's the him, has evolved over the years, as you can see that. Certainly more menacing in the more modern picture. But something obviously classic and evocative about that initial picture. So here's another group of things that we've done. We've had a lot of success with Star Wars in different ways. You can see that classic Jaws picture with the 45th anniversary of that movie. Here's some other topics that we're doing. We're often looking for anniversaries, right? So depending on what it might be, we'll try to time something specific, as I mentioned, the moon landing for this year. We often don't do so well or have as much interest in sort of a collective of things, but one exception to that has been the 100 people who changed the world. That's another issue that we've done numerous times, slightly updating it for people who change the world, but they don't come along that often. Olivia Rodrigo did not make it the most recent, though some people might complain. But so we're covering military, and again, there's an opportunity to use some of those wonderful pictures. We had a lot of success with Anne Frank. Initially came out on an anniversary and then continued to publish. Religion continues to be a topic that we've done well with. Dead Sea Scrolls. You know, it's funny that is one that we sometimes get made fun of a little bit. My daughter was once like, "What? Why are people buying the Dead Sea Scroll?" But it's actually so incredibly fascinating. I don't need to tell you guys that if you're interested in it, but what an incredible find, and the story of when we tell the Dead Sea Scrolls, much as when we cover the space race, it's really gripping. There was a lot of like who was going to get the scrolls first and what was legitimate and what wasn't. We're trying to bring a little bit of something like that to our storytelling along with the pictures. Let's go on. Yeah, so scary and mystery is its own topic. I think the issue is on there twice. The haunted place issue we saw up top because we printed it twice last year. So that's why it's there twice. But it's a little different than the world's scariest places. You don't have to be haunted to be scary. And mummies probably deserves to be alongside our vampires issue, which I showed earlier. Animals have been very successful for us. We had a lot of success with cats, as I mentioned, dogs, which was the first one. There you see it on the right. Why we need them, why they need us. And we started sort of branching out into other animals. We had a really good 2 years ago. We did a successful issue on tigers. Horses have been really successful, and our birds issue. We have an issue this year on penguins. We have an issue on apes. So anybody who wants to suggest, we will do anything. Probably not a hedgehog, but pretty much anything else. So open to suggestions for your favorite animal. And here's just the last little slide on other topics. We've done a lot more royals, and we will do more royals. Last year was just a little bit light. We tied into the crown, which was this last year. I think last year. Forgive me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the finale. And we usually have success with some Christmas themed and holiday themed issues. The story of Santa, It's a Wonderful Life. So what we do is we look at all our potential topics at what we can do. We're trying to put out the best issue we can each week of the year. The timing is important when we do something. We're probably not going to do birds in the dead of winter. We're going to do it around migration in February, or I'm sorry, in April and May. I know that's a Northeast bias, but it generally holds that there's a migratory time that's better. And I should mention Jimmy Buffett. We published that a couple times, but his death was a catalyst for publishing the issue, of course. And that's something we do under life. If a celebrity dies, we often do an issue on them, and we find that their survivors are very sort of. It can be a little difficult, right, to go to somebody and say, "Hey, we're doing this issue," and at a time of loss, but people tend to be quite sort of grateful and happy that we're doing it, and we take the responsibility of like we're arguably putting together the last thing anybody's going to see or read about this man or woman or person, and so we often have to work very quickly, but we try to get those out. And so that's the presentation. I'm gonna come off of here and stop sharing, and then I'm very happy to answer any questions or provide any other information.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Kostya, for telling us about what life is like today. So as we mentioned, we have some questions that we've thought of to discuss, but we also definitely want to hear questions from the audience and what you are interested in asking Jill and Kostya about. So the Q&A down at the bottom of your screen, the little 2 speech text bubbles, that's open. You can feel free to write questions in there, and we can all see them so we can discuss them. So I think to start out, I think a lot of us would be really interested in how did life adapt to the new digital age we're in, and go from being this long time printed publication to now having this online presence. And I'm also wondering, do either of you see any benefits to physical printed media, whether that's printed photographs, the printed magazines, although it may seem more like a novelty these days. I think there is a benefit to having something that's actually capturing a moment in time that you can't go and change. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on either of those.
Jill, do you want to? I guess I'll go
Yeah,
I'll let Jill
please.
talk about because Jill's really much closer to and overseeing our social and digital presence. We do work together a little bit on life.com. But so I'll just it's obviously extremely important to have a digital presence and to be leveraging that, and that's not the future, that's the present, that's yesterday, and it's tomorrow, and it's everything, right? The question of is there value in print? I mean, there's no question. I mean, this sort of rush to dismiss print is so it's not it's just misguided, right? We know, and this is going to sound homeworky, but we know people retain information better and get a fuller experience out of looking and holding something in print that they can touch and feel, that they read in that way. That's known, that's shown. But even apart from that, the appetite is clearly there, right? We're not selling, this is just one brand of magazine selling well over 2 million copies a year. My group, we sell close to 20 million copies of physical magazines. When people do not have to buy them, they buy them because they want to buy them. I think about a book and what an absolutely incredible piece of technology it is. Here it is. It's got everything you need. You open it up, you don't have to plug it in. Olivia, would you like to read this when I'm done? I just give it to you. So there's a lot of value. There's a lot of value in having a lot of what we do are kind of keepsakey in my arm. So you put it on the coffee table, have it, share it, talk about it, engage with it. It's just simply a different experience. And we know also from, and it's something I could just maybe I'm taking a little too far, and Jill, I want you to go back to the social and all that. We know there's a cross brand at Dotdash Meredith. When a person, whether it's a celebrity or a person in the news, is on a physical magazine cover, it just hits differently. It just means so much more to, again, a celebrity, a musician, whoever it might be, to be physically in print and be held and shown than it does. Of course, people are happy to be online and things go viral and there's that whole ecosystem, but there's no question it's a valuable, it's obviously not what it was 20 years ago, 10 years ago, but it's an extremely important part in human experience and in our business models for print, and it will be for many, many years, maybe forever, but certainly for as far as we can see going forward. Jill, did you want to talk a little bit about?
Yeah, well, I just want to give a quick shout out to the Internet Archive's Wayback Machine. So Olivia, when you asked the question about, Life being digital, Life actually launched its website in 1997. So math, what is that, 27 years ago? And so I just wanted to show you all the first life.com, which is kind of charming and cute. So yeah, this is what we looked like 27 years ago. And you can follow along with all of the digital iterations of Life via the Wayback Machine. So, what we looked like in 2008. So Life always, even in the 30s, well, I guess they didn't, I guess that didn't work so well. But even in the 30s, like Life was really interested in being in the avant-garde of technology. And so that's kind of part of the brand. And then we were also early adopters on social media. So one of the surprises, I think, for us has been how much a young audience likes to interact with us on Instagram, for example. So we have 3.6 million followers, a little bit more than that. And most of them, are fairly young. And I think there's a desire for authentic, historic, relevant, curated content that feels safe to people and feels interesting. So I think that Life actually plays really well and interestingly in a digital space.
Thank you so much for that, especially Jill for the Wayback Machine. That was really cool. And
yeah, it's one of my favorite tools. So everyone should use the Wayback Machine to look at all of your
really important too, because in my mind, what's so important when I'm thinking from the historian perspective about physical printed media is that it's not something that you can go back and change. And the danger in these, articles and news on the internet is that it's so easy to seemingly edit them. And then it's hard to tell, is that actually what they knew at the time or did that get changed later? But it's so beneficial to have these tools like the Wayback Machine, so you can know, no, back in, 5 years ago, that's not how they were reporting on this. This has been changed. A hopefully much simpler question from the audience. Janet is wondering that where you can find to purchase the Issues of Life, Kostya, that you were showing.
Okay, great. Yeah, these are primarily it's at retail, it's at newsstand, meaning at every supermarket, whether it's Stop and Shop or Walmart or Kroger or Hy-Vee or CVS or all of the big box stores, also small one. So that's how you can find it. We're usually at checkout. We have good positioning, and bookstores, Barnes and Noble certainly. So anyway, you might get that. The other place, you can go on Amazon, and you can buy these on Amazon at any time. Just if you know the topic you're looking for in Life magazine, or sometimes it helps to put Life Special Edition magazine, because there are some people who sell sort of old issues of the original Life, which maybe you'd be interested in as well. And there you get and you can get them that way too. Yeah, you just have to go and look for them, but they're very easy to find.
Perfect. Another audience question we have is, I believe this is probably mainly directed at Jill. They're wondering if you could speak about some of the challenges of digitizing, cataloging, and managing access to millions of digital assets. When did digitization of the collection start? And are the materials all digitized in-house, or are they sent out to someone else to take care of?
Yeah, that's a great question, and a big one. So I guess I'll start with, they started digitizing the collection. So I kind of like to be a little historian of the collection. So in my research, it looks like they started scanning things in the mid to late 90s. So again, back to that idea of having a website fairly early, they really wanted to make the archive as accessible to the public as possible digitally. So they started early. I guess in terms of how we digitize, so it's a mixture. We have, of course, we're talking about millions of objects. So we've worked with external vendors. We have a small staff, so we did scan and photograph things. So it's a mixture, but the big projects, millions of negative strips, those went to external vendors. And then in terms of managing that process, I guess I try to keep the end user in mind, which is just, the public. This is incredibly important history that needs to be accessible to people. So my interest is in making it accessible fairly quickly. So I went to library school, and I worked at amazing universities. And sometimes I wish that I could catalog every photograph perfectly and really detailed, but there's just too many. So I try, when the librarian or archivist brain turns on and says, oh no, you need more metadata or more description, I have to say, no, the goal is to get it out to people and just keep refining it from there. We just want people to be able to see these incredible works. So yeah, that's it. And again, happy to, I'll share my email at the end in the chat. And so if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me, email me.
And I'll just say on this quickly, because I want people to have your email if they want it. I don't know if there's a chat enabled on this, so maybe.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yes, I'll share your screen with your email on it.
I'll share my screen. Thank you.
Another question from Nathan, which I think is really fascinating. So he's wondering if the Life Picture Library is being made available to AI for training the AI on generating content, and what would you want as future utilization of Life IP in the AI world, and is Life looking into having that as a financial benefit for them, or is that something that you're not interested in going into?
Yeah, we've definitely looked at that, and we've talked to companies. There are pros and cons, of course, to providing a data set for training models. As you can see, like the cataloging of historical, or the AI description of historical photographs is not as advanced as more contemporary photography. So there is that interest, but there are also sensitivities around it, of course, that we have to be aware of. There is, I believe, and I forget his title, but the company that we work for, Dash Meredith, has like kind of an AI sort of ethics officer. So that's something I know that they think about as well. So we're open to exploring all kinds of things, and we don't have a strategy one way or the other yet.
Definitely something that's currently evolving day to day. Perhaps now these are more questions for Kostya. I think they kind of relate. First, how do you determine what's going to be the cover image for the magazine? And then a bit more specifically, do you know what celebrity on the cover has sold the most copies of Life? I feel like I'm going to disagree with whatever the answer is, but if you know, that would be very interesting.
So I'll take the cover selection first. Again, we're trying, and in this way, we really overlap with what's happening digitally, in that we want to serve the consumer. So the first thing with it, first of all, if the magazine is called Jimmy Buffett, it's going to be Jimmy Buffett's going to be on the cover, and if it's called Elvis, Elvis is going to be on the cover. But one thing to think about our covers, because we are newsstand and retail, is we're not trying to be super clever or trying to make some joke or do something that's hard to get. We want you to be able to know what we're about right away. You think about a magazine, I don't know how many of you out there get the Sunday New York Times. You get the Sunday New York Times magazine, wonderful magazine, great covers. They do covers that would never work for our place, right? You don't need to have somebody, they've already bought the paper, now they're opening to something inside, they can look at it, they can have as much time as they want to understand the satire, see the meaning, the symbolism. Great. It's artistically, it's a wonderful opportunity. We try to be as artistic as we can within our parameter, but we want you to know this is about dogs. This is about a bird. And so within that context, we have a sense of the sort of type of pictures that do well on covers and people respond to. And we have a group, we tend to initially, for any given cover, we might start with looking at 15 or 20 different, possibilities. And we begin to narrow it down through, first, it's a little bit of a larger group and people, and we're happy to hear that because somebody could represent anything that a passerby might think, and making sure things are clear and appealing. And then just get to be a small group of those of us who've done this for a long time. And it's even different from when I was involved in cover selection for, say, Sports Illustrated, when we had a large subscription base, and we had a sort of in the know crowd. You could kind of be a little clever because everybody knew the world. If you're doing a Michael Jordan cover, everybody came to it knowing half the stuff about Michael Jordan already, and you were taking it to a different level. So it's a little bit different here, but we want to be attractive and appealing. I don't know who the celebrity is, but I'm going to say Marilyn or Elvis are going to be, if you're talking about the history of life, I think those would be where my money is. I didn't know if that question was specifically about Life or just magazines in general, because of course Jen had her time at People, and Michael had his time at Sports Illustrated. So there's big stars at different arenas, but I would say those two would probably be my bet for Life.
Amazing. Something that I've been wondering about is, especially with the news that Life is going to begin printing on a regular basis again, what do you two think is the best way to introduce Life and its legacy to a new generation, especially this new generation that has grown up largely without, regularly having printed magazine or other printed media?
Well, I'll just say that, we're partnering with this group, and they seem really very excited for the partnership. It seems wonderful, but this is really their project, and they're really smart people, and what we've seen looks beautiful. There's a lot of different ways you can go, and one thing I would say is it's a wonderful brand. You can do a lot of really great things with it, and I'm really optimistic that that's what's going to happen. And I, in some way, to be connected to the DNA of Life, but that really gives you a lot of ways to go. I don't know if you have any other thoughts on that, Jill.
Yeah, I think that one of what you were saying about the brand being so elastic is, the life of the 1930s is different from the life of the 1980s. And I guess the brand, when it was publishing regularly, wasn't really precious about itself. So I think that there's just a lot of opportunity to hire and promote incredible new photographers and, young writers and the kind of the eye of today. And that's what I really am looking forward to seeing. And the people that we're partnering with, are extremely well connected and have wonderful ideas, and we can't wait. So, yeah.
That's great. So much to look forward to in the future. Maybe another question about the future is, I'm wondering specifically for you, Jill, we've had this, massive transition towards, of course, film, photos being taken on film and actually having a physical presence, to now mostly photographs are taken digitally. So how do you think the fact that now most photos only exist in a digital form is going to change the role of people who oversee historical photos, generations from now and in the future?
Yeah. Oh, great question, Olivia. I have to put back on my library school brain. So, one of the things I remember from, again, from my time at Syracuse, which is a great information science program, is this concept of the digital dark ages. So as text and photography are becoming increasingly digital, and digital preservation is very, can be very complex, very expensive, will these objects be available to the historians of 500 years from now in the way that a medieval illuminated manuscript would be, or a life silver gelatin print would be? I know that there are a lot of people much smarter than I am thinking about digital preservation and how to preserve the artifacts and the ideas and writings and photography and video of today. And I think, yeah, so I'm optimistic. I know that there's, at least in my career, there's been a lot of headway in digital preservation. But yeah, it's honestly, physical artifacts can, long-term be much cheaper to care for than trying to back up petabytes and terabytes for generations on generations. So it'll be interesting to watch. And again, maybe that's not exactly true, but I think that, yeah, it's a good question. Sorry.
No, you shouldn't apologize. I think it's something that when I was even thinking of the question, I'm like, I don't even know how you could answer, because it's so, coming into a new world and almost having to reinvent the wheel, that there's been these practices for archives and, historic photographs and historic documents for so long, but the process for archiving and organizing things that only have had a life digitally, it's the completely new world.
And I think AI has done some, obviously everyone knows has done interesting things with that, even just like the photos on your phone, right? Like you can search much easier than you could even a few years ago. So yeah, I think it's so exciting, and I urge a lot of young people to solve that problem. I will continue to work on old photographs.
So speaking of your old photographs, one of our audience members is wondering, where is the life picture collection physically located today?
Yeah, so we're in New York and New Jersey. We are physically not open to the public. That's why we're scanning so many things. But we are partnering more and more with cultural institutions, again, like the Greenwich Historical Society and New York Historical Society, to make the objects viewable. But yeah, don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions. And most of the collection has been scanned, and we'd love to display physical artifacts with great partners like Olivia's institution.
And a question for one of my colleagues, they were wondering, does life picture collection include undeveloped film negatives or only the actual photographic prints?
Yeah, so the bulk of it is negatives. Yeah, so negatives, contact sheets, slides, transparencies, all kinds of formats. And the prints are actually, I think we have about 1 million prints, and I think we've scanned over 8 million negative frames, no, over 7 million negative frames. And then on top of that, slides and transparency. So yeah, a lot of story. And that's the amazing thing too, is that, life, again, it was the most popular magazine, you know, of its time for a number of decades, had just incredible staff and photographers. So many assignments that were given to photographers were actually never published. So there's just incredible stories that we hope people will discover with us. So.
Yeah, and I will say that was one of the most interesting parts for me for the exhibition we have at the Historical Society right now, is seeing the contact sheets, and you can see them circling, you know, this one arrow, and you see then how it looks when it got published in the magazine. But it's incredible to see, because I'm looking at some of them and I'm like, I don't know, I kind of like that photo better. I wonder why they didn't go with that one. And you can really see the thought process behind them when you see, you know, the outtakes of it as well. And I think that's what's so amazing about having the actual physical photos as well, is that these days, you know, you take a photo on your phone and it's blurry or it comes up bad and you're like, okay, delete that, it's gone. And we're kind of just left with these perfect images. But when you have the negatives and the contact sheets, you see the progress behind the photo and more of the story behind it and the context. You're not just seeing the like perfect, this is the moment that we want published. So that's really incredible that those were all preserved as well, and not just.
Yeah. And it's such a reflection of humanity in the 20th century too, like what their tastes were, what their interests were. And yeah, no, I feel the same way about outtakes.
Well, because I know we're getting to the close of the hour here, unless anyone from the audience wants to throw in some last minute questions, which is totally fine. Please feel free. Q&A is still open. I have a question that I would like to end on for both Jill and Kostya, which is, what is the meaning of life? Life in all caps.
Well, that's a little bit of a heavy question right there. I'm looking to see if I can find a bumper sticker to tell me what the meaning of life is. You know, what is the meaning of life, all caps? It's a place. So the meaning of life, I guess, right? Life is kind of meaningless, and it's what we bring to it and how we decide to spend our time and who we're gonna love and what we're gonna do for work and what we're gonna eat. And life, capital L, I, capital F, capital E, I think is the same way in some ways, that there are all these pictures out there, and probably everybody on this call would have a different favorite picture, would have a different type of picture, would bring something into life that makes it meaningful for us. And I think that's what the brand and the resources, the assets of life afford people a chance to do. And that's true in the beginning, and that's true, we hope, now with what Jill is doing and I'm doing, and we certainly hope that going to the future, to be a place to bring yourself into and to accommodate. I don't know, Jill, I just try.
I think you
What do
could,
you got?
yes. I defer to Kostya on that one. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, you know, the purpose of lowercase life and uppercase life is sort of locating meaning and sharing it with others in whatever way you individually find that. So yeah, that's what I got. That and an email address.
Well, thank you both so much, to Jill and Kostya, and of course to everyone who joined us tonight, for sharing your expertise and your insights, and, you know, giving us all this exciting information about what is coming up with life. For more about what life was like in the past, I encourage everyone who is local to Greenwich or could visit us at the Historical Society to come see the Life 6 Women Photographers exhibition. It is truly such an incredible collection of photographs, and also the outtakes and stories about, you know, this era in American history and how these female photographers captured them. So it is on view through July 7th. So I hope you make time to see it. Wednesday through Sunday, our gallery is open. And there you have Jill's contact info.
And thank you, Olivia, so much for your guiding us and leading us here, and Greenwich Historical Society, such a wonderful place. I've had an opportunity to be there for a few different things, and it's really probably everybody on the call knows this already, but if you don't, you should definitely get there and see it. It's a wonderful place. And thanks to everybody for joining, and Jill for letting me be part of the two-person team here.
Oh,
Thank you all.
Yeah, and everyone go see the exhibit. It's awesome. So I want everyone to see it.
Thank you both again, and I hope everyone has a great night, and hope to see you at another event with the Historical Society soon.
Good night.